Hey, hi, hello. My name is Tate, and today I'm gonna turn off my fucking fan so you don't get that bad noise. Hey, hi, hello. I'm gonna have to stop butting into that. Hey, hi, hello. My name is Tate, and today I'm doing my July wrap up. I read 9 books in July, I think. I think that's the number that I read. Yeah, 9 books. I also did participate in Reading Rush. I didn't win it, but I did do well considering how I was feeling during the Reading Rush. We'll get to that later. Let's just get into it. Also, yes, I am wearing a sweater even though it's like 80 degrees outside because I just wanted to wear this because this thing makes me so happy. Like, it's got the long sleeves that I can curl into, but it's also got like by NASA, and I love it so much. I want to wear it every day for the rest of my life until I die and then be buried in it. Anyway, the first book that I read was Grease Spats by Archie... Oh shit. By Archie... What is it? Bon Giovanni by Archie B. Giovanni? Bon Giovanni. Oh my god. First one I read was Grease Spats by Archie Bon Giovanni. Basically, this is like a slice of life graphic novel of sorts that came from a webcomic kind of thing that basically just follows these two queer best friends. One is Scout, who is just a disaster woman, like would rather die than like have to actually flirt or like put herself out there, and then Andy, who is genderqueer, uses they them pronouns and is just, by their own words, a raging homosexual, even though they like multiple genders. And it's just them and their other friends and all the shit they get into, just slice of life stuff. I will give a bit of a trigger warning, content warning on this, that there is misgendering in this book. And it also does deal with some difficult topics such as homophobia, transphobia, the 2016 US election, the rights you have to your own body, mental health, feeling queer enough, lots of things like that. Lots of just very queer and modern issues. But I will say that it never lets itself go too dark into those issues. It never goes really deep into those without bringing in hope or friendship or light somehow. It never lets itself stay in that dark place. So just be aware of that. Also, I did read this as an e-arc from NetGalley. This book doesn't come out until September 3rd. So watch out for that. I gave this book 4 stars. This was just such a fun book. It was just so much fun. It was 1,000,000% the kind of book that a queer person writes for queer people. Like, this was true queer content that it was just so relatable in so many ways, both in funny ways or things within identity or fears or a bunch of other things. And the humor is god tier because it's all funny, it's all queer humor, and it's also got millennial Gen Z humor. The synopsis of this book literally starts with, "So no one told you life was gonna be this gay." God tier, galaxy brain. We just have to give a couple examples, which I'm going to read from my laptop because, oh god, it was god tier. First of all, we have Scout, the disaster woman, saying, "I identify as crying in public bathrooms, 100% monogamous but perpetually single, and maybe as a long hair butch but without the butch part." There's also a tag yourself meme with all the characters, which is iconic. Then Scout tries to send a text to a girl for literally an hour, and then just yells, "I can't do this. I'll just die alone and never have another partner. It's totally fine and I'm not even upset." So good. And Andy has some of the funniest humor ever. There's a point where someone is like, "Oh, sorry, I don't want to go on a date with you, Scout, because I am actually straight, but thank you for the offer." And Scout tells Andy, and Andy's like, "Straight? Seems a little outdated. It's 2016. Me too, bitch. Also, "Ari, you can't start a conversation with 'I'm gay and depressed.'" Why not? Because it's 2018. Everyone's gay and depressed. It's not even interesting anymore. God tier humor. It's so funny. It's so funny. I have so many other jokes I could tell you, but I'm not gonna, but I want to. I felt really seen by this book in specific and also very general ways. There are so many gender and sexuality identities that are portrayed and in different ways. You've got people of color involved, you've got people who have different approaches to their queer existence, people of different body shapes and body sizes, and just so much good stuff. For example, some of the queer rap there was more than just this, but there was general woman, there was bi, there was lesbian, there was bi, pan, general likes multiple genders, there was genderqueer, aro ace, there was polyamorous, there was just so much. Like, it was just full of wonderful queer content. The queer friendship content was just so good. Like, I feel like we sometimes so underestimate how wonderful and sweet queer friendships are in stories and just how meaningful they are. I only had a couple things really against this book. I'm not used to slice of life, so I feel like I was wanting it to have a little bit more of a progressive overall plot, or for some things to get brought up more than just once or twice, but maybe that's just how slice of life are supposed to be. They definitely didn't have an episode or a little chapter per se that like wrapped it all up. It just kind of, they put them all together and there you go, which is like fine, I guess, but I also wish that we would have gotten some sort of like last one to tie everything up a little bit. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. Go check it out September 3rd. I think you can also still find some of it online in webcomic-ish form. If I can find where it was, I'll link it down below for you guys because, oh my god, it's so funny. Second one is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I know I own this book. I just don't have it with me because my friend is borrowing it to read it. Oh, I miss it. I just want to see Simon and Baz again. For synopsis, think that, like, take Harry Potter, but, like, change up the magic system a bit, make the chosen one actually, like struggling a bit more than Harry was, and a lot more gay, and with redemption arcs that we actually deserved. Bitch, we know this is 5 stars. The feelings, the angst, the overwhelming emotions, the fluff, the ooh. Also, like, I was not expecting any of the world bending to be interesting at all. I just thought it was gonna be like basic ass Harry Potter world kind of thing. But the way that they did the magic system was actually really interesting because they do it that you use really common phrases and that becomes a spell that you can use. So I can't remember any, like up and away, and that could be used to levitate, but it has to be a strong spell. So you could like make up spells if you can find a phrase that can turn into something. And they also have that, like, you can have your voice taken away or magic taken away if you don't have your voice or things like that. And it was so interesting. And all the stuff with the Insidious Humdrum, the villain, was like so cool. Like, the farther I got, the more cool it was and the more fascinating it all was. Oh, it was so good. Oh. Third book, Becca, you listen up. Third book is Failure to Communicate by Kaya Sonderby. So I really should look that up. This synopsis is a little longer because I feel like you need more context. So basically, you have our main character, Xandri, which is like short for Alexandra, but Xandri, which I actually really like. But anyway, Xandri is one of the last autistic people left in the universe because they started using like gene changing, I don't remember the word for it, but they basically started making it so that kids wouldn't be born with neurodivergencies but Xandri's parents did not do that, and so Xandri's one of the last autistic people left in the universe. She works as a xenoliaison, which I don't know if this is a real thing in our universe, but in this universe, it's basically like you're like a first contact with like planets to try to get them to join like the big like alliance to have like good trading and stuff like that, and to like be like, hey, we come in peace, like, can we help you, and like try to understand their like their language. Like, she basically is supposed to analyze how they interact and try to figure out like what kind of things would be rude for them, what kind of things are this, how do they express their emotions so that they can do negotiations and things easier. It's actually really interesting. And basically now she's gotten her biggest challenge yet because she has to go try to negotiate with this people called the Anne-Morelli? Yeah, Anne-Morelli, who are really xenophobic and just really hypocritical. They've got a lot of connections to humanhood, honestly. Basically trying to convince them not to get into an alliance with this like murderous, horrible people that just like wants to destroy everything. And then also there's like, you know, issues start popping up. People aren't like, oh, shit goes down. Do have some trigger warnings for this one. There is definitely some ableism in this book, specifically about Xandri being autistic, but in general as well. There's also a lot of xenophobia, there's animal cruelty and death, and there's also a little bit of racism, both in the terms of like our world racism and also like interspecies racism. So be aware of that. Be safe. I give this book 4 stars. This was such a unique book. Like, I've never heard of a concept like this before. Like, you're literally taking an autistic queer woman and being like, yeah, the thing that everyone says she can't do, understand other species, understand how people can interact. Well, she's gonna do that as a job and be fucking great at it. Like, oh, it was so good. And all the different creatures and like their descriptions were like so cool. And I love Diver and Key so much. And there was like a hint of polyamory that like, oh my god, if we don't get it soon, I'm gonna cry. But like, we definitely, I hope, get it soon, because like I could feel it, and I bet you it's gonna be actually canon. Like, it's not queer baiting, and I'm so ready. There were, I thought, some kind of plot issues, more like just with pacing, that sometimes I felt like we were going a little slower than I wanted, or like the climax was kind of like a bunch of little climaxes that didn't feel like they were leading up to the big thing. They were just like, oh, this happened, oh shit, but also this happened, also shit, this happened, and it was just kind of like clumped together. It was still enjoyable. It just like, I was waiting for the huge build up and I never quite got that. But yeah, overall it was really good. It's so underrated, and I'm so excited for the sequel, which is Tone of Voice, and you guys should all read it. It's either free or like really inexpensive on Kindle, like $2 or $3 or something like that. So like, why not pick it up? Make me happy. Make Becca from Becca's Book Realm happy. Like, come on. Chop chop. The fourth book I read was... what just happened? I don't know. The fourth book was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. If you haven't somehow heard of what this is about, then okay, I guess I'll tell you. Basically, the first son of the President of the United States, the first female one, has to fake being friends with Henry, the Prince of Wales, because they always had like a bit of a kind of dislike of each other, kind of a rivalry, and then they have this kind of like little fiasco go down on that like gets in the news, and they have to force being friends. Then, oh no, gay, liking each other, secret relationship. It's, yeah. Definitely there is some trigger warnings for homophobia, for racism, as Alex, our main character, is half Mexican, is biracial, and there's just some racist shit. Also for getting outed publicly, and for family not like accepting your identity and stuff like that. So just be careful of that. Also be aware that this is not a young adult, this is a new adult book, so there are some sex scenes in here. They're not super explicit, they're more atmospheric, but like they're definitely not fade to black. So just if that makes you uncomfortable for any reason, just really be aware of that. If you really want to read this book but you're really scared of the sex scenes, like literally just DM me and I'll just tell you where they are, and then you can just like yeet over them or something. Like, I just want y'all to be safe but still be able to enjoy this book. You know? Okay, cool. 5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars on my favorites list. So was Carry On. By the way, characters, complex, intriguing, engaging, lovable, character development, romance, chaotic, gay, cute, the emotions, angsty but also fluffy, humor, millennial, god tier, constant and like realistic. My heart sold. Sold to the highest bidder, and it was Red, White, and Royal Blue. Bitch is on the hype. And also my writing in this, chaotic as shit. I had so many, first of all. Then I had some where I'd just be like, wow, Alex is drunk, and it had a period, and I just took out the period and said, and bisexual. Okay, this isn't a spoiler or anything, but I just wanted to note that it says, Alex ducks out of an aggressive come-on by a girl from the new Spider-Man movies. And I just wrote in the corner, was that Zendaya? Because was it? I would draw T, because T. I literally keyboard smashed writing. Like, you can't keyboard smash writing, but I did it. Oh yeah, this is one of my favorites. Henry breathes. Alex, oh no, that's sexy. That's it. That's all, folks. I need to stop looking at this. The next book was Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. I read this for Reading Rush. So there's that. Basically, summary for this is our main character, Losa, lets herself get captured onto this enemy pirate ship, and they think that they've like captured her to get ransom, but she's actually there on purpose to try to find this treasure map that's supposedly hidden on the ship. But also, oh no, the first mate is hot and actually not like a douchebag. Oh no. Trigger warnings for this, that there is child neglect and abuse discussed in this. There's also attempted filicide, which is a parent killing a child, and there's also patricide, which is a child killing a parent. Pirates, they kill people. I read this for Reading Rush because it has 5+ words in the title, and I also did it for a non-human main character. but I can't tell you why, and that it's a book I meant to read last year, and it's the author's first book. So I got a lot of stuff done with just this one book. I give this book 3.5 stars, I think. I'm just gonna say it, this book should have been new adult. I just felt like this would have been so good if we had bumped it up a little bit, and we would have been able to like delve a little bit more into some of this stuff. And I just feel like it read more like a new adult idea. Or like, it was just one of those that just like felt like it was supposed to be new adult, but it wasn't. So yeah, there's just that tea. There are also some issues, I guess, with plot pacing, that sometimes we were just kind of like repeated the same things over and over. The romance though was mostly pretty enjoyable. Obviously it's Alyssa and the first mate right in. For the most part I really enjoyed it. It had like really good angst with it, and like we make out and then pretend that it meant nothing, but there were a couple of scenes that just made me feel like maybe this should have been written a little bit differently so that we would have been more clear about consent. It's better to have too much consent than too little, and sometimes I felt like they just maybe should have like paused for a second and made sure stuff was okay and then continued on. But like, it was nothing super bad. It's just a me thing that some of the scenes just didn't quite work for me, but like other ones, it worked a little too well. Oh god. Also, fun fact, I knew a lot about this book already because a friend of mine, Alex, had read this book, and she like would rant about it to me and just like give me snippets and pages to read because she was screaming. And so like there were some scenes in here that I already knew how it went, and I knew some spoilers for it, but I never actually read it, so I forced myself to read it, and now I've done it. Alex, you can be proud of me. The next book I read was The Little Prince by a French person. I'm too scared to say the French, especially because I'm terrified that Alex, my friend, is going to watch this, and she speaks French, and she's going to judge me, and I can't do it. But it's Antoine de Saint-Exupéry? Exupéry? I don't know how to say X's in French. It's E-X-U-P-E-R-Y, so it's Antoine de Saint, that word. This is a children's novel that's basically about this little prince who basically lives on this tiny planet, a planet that is scarcely bigger than himself. He basically leaves and travels and goes to all these different asteroids, planets, learning about how odd and kind of strange the adult world is and stuff like that, and ends up on Earth where he meets this pilot, and things go on from there. And it's definitely all, you know, an allegory for adulthood and for childhood and all that kind of stuff. It's one of those books where it's written technically for children, but when you're an adult, like, it hits you really hard. I read this also for Reading Rush because I did the book to movie adaptation for this, so I read this and then I watched the Little Prince movie, which also in the movie they take Little Prince and they also incorporate the story of a girl whose like whole life is planned out for her, and then she meets this pilot who was a pilot who met the Little Prince, and he tells her about the story, and it's so good. Honestly, it was such a sweet story, and the cinematography was so beautiful, and it made me sob. Like, maybe I'll insert the picture of how ugly I was sobbing about this movie because it was just that's how I felt. I didn't know how to rate this book because I don't feel like it was a children's book and I never know how to rate them. Also, I read this book really fast because I was trying to go fast for Reading Rush, and I was doing kind of in snippets of spare time, and I wish that I would have sat down and more savored it a little bit more. I think it would have been a little better of an experience, but I did really, really enjoy this book. The next book I read will make a lot of people happy, and that was Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. Basically, if you don't know what this is about, it's shadow hunters, but you don't know what that's about. I don't have time. They're Nephilim, they're half angel, and they hunt demons. Anyway, it's Shadowhunters, but in 1878 or something like that, and it's basically following our main character, Tessa. She goes to London, supposedly, to see her brother, but then shit goes down, and she ends up finding the Shadowhunters and joining up with them to figure out some very odd goings-on, and things evolve from there. There are creepy automatons. This was a buddy read. I say buddy read because Shauna is very fast and fucking finished the book before I was halfway through, because I suck and I was in a weird mental spot for all of Reading Rush where I didn't want to read and I was too anxious to do anything. Fun fact. So basically I suck, and buddy read was very loose. I read this for Reading Rush, and the prompt that I filled was 5-star book because it was a 5-star book. I mean, I guess it was maybe 4.5 stars, but I rounded it up to a 5 so it counts. I really loved the writing. I really liked the world building and all of the characters. I got so attached to them, except for Jessamine, who can choke. We're gonna square the fuck up, Jessamine. We're gonna square the fuck up. Anyway, Jem is my husband, my baby, my love, my everything. Like, I don't know what descriptors I've used so far, but like all of the good ones, that's Jem for me. This is mayhaps an unpopular opinion, but when I read this book, I did kind of honestly feel like the development of romantic feelings between Will and Tessa was kind of jumpy and choppy. Like, we had like a romantic scene, and I thought we had forever until that would happen. I was not prepared for it to happen. I didn't think that they had any sparks between them yet, but apparently I just missed them. My opinion on some of the romance stuff does definitely evolve as you get into Clockwork Prince, which I'm reading right now. But in this book, I definitely was just like, why can't Will and Jem marry each other? But also, like, they should just all marry each other. Like, all three. It should be poly. That's just that on that. The next book I read, which was also for reading rush, just like a general book to read, was Freshwater by Clockwork Angel. This book basically follows our main character, Ada, who develops separate selves because she is born with one foot on the other side. That she was born with one part of herself in the spirit world, and so it's creating separate selves inside of her. So it mirrors a lot of dissociative identity disorder. Apparently some of it is based in the author's reality, so just fun fact. That's just following her dealing with this, especially as they start to condense into like from just kind of this presence in her mind to like personalities and identities within her. Ada is Nigerian. This like idea of like the separate selves when we're on the other side, and a lot of stuff they talk about comes from that culture and some of the folklore. There are a lot of trigger warnings for this. I'm just gonna have to read from my laptop because there are a lot of trigger warnings. This is not a book to go in lightly. Sexual assault and rape, pretty explicit. Similarities to DID, dissociative identity disorder. The processing of sexual trauma, cheating, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, attempted suicide, drug use, and eating disorders. I gave this book 3 stars. I felt that the writing was really, really beautiful, and the concept was so unique and so intriguing. It had a very raw voice that I thought was very important, and it had some really good messages in there. A lot of this book I listened to on audiobook, and I feel like honestly for once I think it would have been better for me to read because I feel like I got lost a lot easier, like not knowing when there were jumps because there were a lot of time jumps back and forth. Sometimes I didn't know if it was past or future, like where in the timeline of her life it was, and we would just kind of jump back and forth, which was like confusing, and maybe that was the point, but it was just a lot for me. And then this is a personal thing, but there's a lot of discussion about sex. There's discussion, first of all, just about more triggering stuff that's like sexual assault, rape, dealing with your sexual trauma, and stuff like that. But there's also just a lot of sex discussed, a lot of in-depth discussion about having sex and things like that. And as someone who is sex repulsed, that was kind of a lot for me a lot of times. Sometimes I had to kind of tune it out a little bit because it was just a bit overwhelming for me. It was just not super comfy, but that's just a personal thing. That doesn't mean that this is a bad book or that sex is bad, anything like that. And also the ending, I could just be stupid, but I felt like the ending was really kind of odd. Like I don't actually know what it meant. The ending kind of is like, not metaphorical, but like they don't like say specifically what happens. They more talk about it in kind of vague abstract terms, which they do sometimes in this book, but then like ending on it, I literally didn't know like, is this a thing that really happened? And what was the thing that happened? Or are you just like talking about your future? I don't know. So overall, this was a book that I thought was like a really cool concept. It just, how it was written in terms of like plot and stuff was just difficult for me. The last book that I read was Rogue One, a Star Wars story by Alexander Freed. Basic synopsis for this, if you don't know about Star Wars, there's an original trilogy and then there's a prequel trilogy that they did, and Rogue One is in between those. It's in between. It's before Luke shows up, but after everything with like Anakin and Obi-Wan and Padme in the early ones. Basically you have Jyn Erso, who basically has to team up with rebels to do rebel stuff. I don't know how much to spoil for you. First of all, I should note that I technically finished this book on August 1st, but I read it for the reading rush, and I finished it like really early on August 1st, so I just wanted to include it in this. So like, let me live. I gave this book 4 stars. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I thought I wasn't gonna like this book very much because I feel like novelizations of movies that are made after the movie is made don't often go well. But wow, first of all, my emotions. I forgot that like reading this book would actually like bring up the emotions that I felt watching Rogue One, and like more in depth, because you get like inside the characters' heads more, and you get to see Cassian thinking. Like I could just like see Cassian, my husband, the love of my life, that one right there, just like thinking and being angsty and like so wonderful, and I wanted to cry. The movie was a lot better, but I still think that this was a good novelization, and that they did some good things with like digging in deep and doing some like background stuff. If you ship Rebel Captain, like if you love Jyn and Cassian, oh, there are some moments in here. There are some moments that really make me drop my croissant. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all of them. Cool, cool, cool. I'm so warm, so I'm gonna go now, not even like talk a lot, but talk to me about books in the comments, and if you are on the hype train for Red, White, and Royal Blue, and if you like Star Wars, and if so, what's your favorite movie? And do you like the original or prequel trilogy more, or Rogue One, or Solo if you're that kind of person? Know that I'm judging you. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye!